The Falklands War was a 10-week conflict fought between Argentina and the United Kingdom over the disputed Falkland Islands in the South Atlantic. The war began on April 2, 1982, when Argentina, under the military dictatorship of General Leopoldo Galtieri, invaded the Falklands, a British overseas territory. This bold move stemmed from long-standing territorial disputes between the two nations. The UK, led by Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, swiftly responded with a military task force to reclaim the islands. On April 2, 1982, Argentine forces launched a surprise invasion of the Falkland Islands, located about 300 miles off the coast of Argentina. The British garrison on the islands, consisting of just a few hundred Royal Marines, was quickly overwhelmed. Argentina also took control of South Georgia and South Sandwich Islands, which were nearby. This aggressive action triggered an immediate international crisis, with the UK declaring its intention to retake the islands. In response to the Argentine invasion, British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher made a swift and firm decision to retake the Falklands. A British naval task force comprising ships and aircraft was sent to the South Atlantic to confront the Argentine forces. The UK also declared a naval blockade around the islands. The world watched closely as both nations braced for what would become one of the most intense military conflicts of the early 1982s. The Sea Harrier, a versatile British jet fighter capable of vertical takeoff and landing, became a symbol of British air power during the Falklands War. In several fierce engagements, the Harriers took on Argentine aircraft, including Mirage and Skyhawk bombers. These British jets, operating from the aircraft carrier Ems Hermes, played a crucial role in defending British ships and launching strikes on Argentine positions on the islands. Despite being outnumbered, the Sea Harriers gained air superiority, effectively neutralizing much of the Argentine threat in the skies. On May 2, 1982, the British submarine HMS Conqueror sank the Argentine cruiser General Belgrano in the South Atlantic. The sinking resulted in the deaths of 323 Argentine sailors. This was a controversial moment in the war because the ship was outside the exclusion zone that the UK had declared around the Falklands. The attack raised questions about the legality and ethics of the action, but it was also a significant blow to Argentina's naval capabilities. One of the key ground battles of the Falklands War was the Battle of Goose, which took place from May 28 to May 29. British forces, including the 2nd Battalion of the Parachute Regiment, engaged Argentine troops entrenched around the settlement. Despite fierce resistance, British forces eventually captured the area, marking a significant turning point in the land campaign. The victory at Goose demonstrated the British forces' determination and ability to adapt to the tough terrain and weather conditions of the Falklands. On May 21, 1982, British forces executed a bold amphibious landing at San Carlos Bay on the Falkland Islands. The operation was codenamed Sutton and was critical for establishing a beachhead for further advances on the islands. Despite facing heavy air and sea attacks by the Argentine forces, the British managed to land troops and equipment. The operation's success allowed the British to begin their drive towards the capital, Stanley. The battle for Mount Tumbledown, fought on June 13-14, 1982, was one of the final key engagements of the Falklands War. British forces, including the 2nd Battalion, Parachute Regiment, launched an assault to capture the Argentine positions on the mountain overlooking the capital, Stanley. The battle was intense, with British forces fighting in close quarters against well-entrenched Argentine troops. The eventual British victory was a crucial step towards forcing Argentina to surrender. After weeks of intense fighting, Argentine forces in the Falklands finally surrendered to British troops on June 14, 1982. With the fall of Stanley, the capital of the Falklands, and the retreat of Argentine forces to defensive positions, the war was effectively over. The surrender marked the end of Argentine military occupation of the islands and the reclamation of the Falklands by the United Kingdom. Over 900 people died in the conflict, including 649 Argentinians and 255 British soldiers. The aftermath of the Falklands War had lasting political and military consequences. In Argentina, the defeat led to the collapse of the military junta, and democratic elections were held in 1983. In the UK, the successful campaign boosted Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher's popularity, solidifying her political power. The war also underscored the importance of military preparedness and strategic planning, influencing British defense policies in the years that followed. The sovereignty of the Falkland Islands remains disputed, but the war solidified British control over the islands, which continue to be a British overseas territory.